My El Paso and Southwest Railroad depicts logging in the Sacramento Mountains in New Mexico in the early 20th century. In earlier videos, I described how I built and automated many features of the model railroad. But a model railroad is never finished, and a former section that I used as a staging yard needed to be expanding to set up interchange tracks. The Southern Pacific Railroad passed to the west of the Sacramento Mountains as it headed to the northeast. The Southern Pacific exchanged livestock, freight, and passengers with the El Paso Southwest Railroad. Although large ranches and open ranges were in decline in the early 1900s, the livestock business was thriving in New Mexico. Cattle were generally raised in small herds and fattened at shipping points on the railroad. Small ranches could ship by rail or truck and transfer livestock to shipping points along the Southern Pacific Railroad for transit to the northeast. Since cattle were required to have access to feed within a certain period of time, I included a small feedlot at the new interchange. The feedlot now became a destination for the cattle ranches along with the timber shipped to the lumber mills, or to El Paso, and fruits and vegetables from orchards and farms. Inbound freight included fuel and machinery to logging camps and the cities of High Rolls and Cloudcroft. To keep track of the activity at the interchange, of course, required paperwork. The yardmaster's office was the place to check in and identify incoming and outgoing livestock and freight. Now, beside the shipment of logs to the lumber mill, all manner of freight had to be managed at the El Negoro interchange. The Southern Pacific did modify some freight cars that could be dropped off and forwarded to the El Paso Southwest for transit to Cloudcroft. The former A&SM line was not a narrow gauge railroad, and empties were returned and refilled or restocked. To climb mountains, engines traveled in pairs to make the grade. This consist included empty stock cars to be exchanged for full stock cars to be returned to El Negoro, and freight to be delivered to the logging camps at Marcia. When arriving at destinations, data was transmitted to the operations center, including arrival time, engine number, and route completed. Although the period modeled was early 1900s, these data were passed on the layout via the computer network to the master scheduler. The operator's terminal displays the entire railroad layout. Switches can be controlled and routes for trains can be selected between destinations. By touching the red button at El Negoro, then the red button at Cloudcroft, a 10-wheeler is assigned to correct route and reported to the computer. Currently, there are 40 routes defined in the program. Where a switch list is generated, there directs and then controls the engines. Different trains can be assigned to a route, whether transporting passengers or freight. Routes are shown on an Excel spreadsheet where color-coded represents specific trains. The list can be sorted by train color, destination, or origination. The current engine roster is listed. The trains are color-coded, where a Red Bull passenger train is assigned to a specific engine through its DCC ID. Blue Bull is assigned stock and Green Bull logs, etc. I found that engines could be substituted by reassigning it the Digitrax DCC ID for a color-coded train instead of hard-coding the engine name in the program. You may have guessed where I'm going with all this. Each route has a purpose, delivering either goods or passengers to a destination. Passengers have to be counted and freight assigned to a customer or stations agent. A relational database can be developed that relates destinations to customers or passengers via manifests or bill of ladings. Passengers from Alamogordo, passengers to Cloudcroft. Logs to the mill for Alamogordo Land and Lumber Company. Freight to Cloudcroft for the Cloudcroft Pavilion Hotel, or from Consolidated Mines over to Phelps Dodge. Machinery to logging camps for Alamogordo Land and Lumber. Herefords from ranches for Cloudcroft Ranch. Stock to railroad feeding lots for White Sands Ranch. Waybills can be generated based on customer orders and scheduled for deliveries based on engine and crew location and availability. At some point, we are no longer modeling a railroad, but a community that existed on a mountain next to a desert over 100 years ago in a territory that just became a state, New Mexico.